شكورا. إنا خلقنا الإنسان من نطفة أمشاج نبتليه فجعلناه سميعا بصيرا. إنا هديناه السبيل إما شاكرا وإما كفورا. إنا أعتدنا للكافرين سلاسل وأغلالا وسعيرا. إن الأبرار يشربون من كأس كان مزاجها كافورا عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفقهونها تفكيرا. يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نظرة وسرورا. وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا متكئين فيها على الأرائك لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا. ودانية عليهم ظلالها وذللت قطوفها تظليلا. ويطاف عليهم بآنية من فضة وأكواب كانت قوارير من فضة قدروها تقديرا. ويسقون فيها كأسا كان مزاجها زنجبيلا عينا فيها تسمى سلسبيلا. ويطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون إذا رأيتهم حسبتهم لؤلؤا منثورا. وإذا رأيت ثم رأيت نعيما وملكا كبيرا. عاليهم ثياب سندس خضر واستبرق وحلوا أساور من فضة وسقاهم ربهم شرابا طهورا. إن هذا كان لكم جزاء وكان سعيكم مشكورا. إنا نحن نزلنا عليك القرآن تنزيلا. فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تطع منهم آثما أو كفورا. واذكر اسم ربك بكرة وأصيلا. ومن الليل فاسجد له وسبحه ليلا طويلا. إن هؤلاء يحبون العاجلة ويذرون وراءهم يوما ثقيلا. نحن خلقناهم وشددنا أسرهم وإذا شئنا بدلنا أمثالهم تبديلا. إن هذه تذكرة من شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا. وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله. إن الله كان عليما حكيما. يدخل من يشاء في رحمته والظالمين أعد لهم عذابا أليما. وصدق الرسول النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاكرين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. السلام على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والله أحد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور، اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور، اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك قريب مجيب الدعوات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على حبيبك سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح السلام بحمدك الحمد لله المالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح خالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق سيدي محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وآل الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومین. اما بعد حضرات السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. آج ہم بدستور دوسری محرم کی مجلس کے لیے یہاں پہ اکٹھا ہوئے ہیں اور ایک دل کی بات ہے جو مجھے لگتا ہے کہ آپ سب اس پہ توقع رکھتے ہوں گے. یہ مجالس اس بات کی تیاری ہے کہ جب انشاءاللہ تعالی امام تشریف فرمائیں گے تو ہم ان مجلسوں میں اکٹھا ہوں گے کہ جس کے خطیب ہمارے امام خود، اور اس بات پہ سب توقع رکھتے ہیں. اور اس پہ ایک بہت اچھا شکوہ جناب بلال قاسمی نے لکھا کہ کتنی صدیوں سے بلاتے ہیں کہ آپ آ جائیں، کتنی صدیوں سے بلاتے ہیں کہ آپ آ جائیں، دل چراغوں میں جلاتے ہیں کہ آپ آ جائیں، دل چراغوں میں جلاتے ہیں کہ آپ آ جائیں، روز یہ فرض نبھاتے ہیں کہ آپ آ جائیں، روز یہ فرض نبھاتے ہیں کہ آپ آ جائیں. ارے انتظار قدم پاک کے افسانے پر لوگ ہنسنے نہ لگے آپ کے دیوانے پر. انتظار قدم پاک کے افسانے پر لوگ ہنسنے نہ لگے آپ کے دیوانے پر. ایک نعرہ صلوات بہت سے بلند. Yesterday, Janab Farshori Sahab was discussing that there is something which is called absolute truth, absolute haq, and Ali is with haq, and Allah is the haq. Continuing our conversation from yesterday, I'll humbly call upon Janab Farshori Sahab to come upon the pulpit and address us on the issue of postmodernized world and Wilayah. Welcome him with your loudest salawats. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
नारे तकबीर, अल्लाहु अकबर. मिलके बोले नारे तकबीर, अल्लाहु अकबर. नारे रिसालत, या रसूलल्लाह. नारे हैदरी, या हैदरी. ज़ैदियत जिंदाबाद, यजीदियत मुर्दाबाद. मोहम्मद मुरद्दर सलावत. अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद. थोड़ा सा आगे आ सकते हैं. सूरत अल-फातिहा. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يمر بكسر قائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العالمون ولا يعطي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدرك بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت الموجود ولا نعت الموجود ولا وقت معدود. أما بعد، وصلى الله على سيدنا مولانا حبيب إله العالمين وخاتم النبيين وخلق الأديم أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على القوم الظالمين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. وصلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة، يا باب نجاة الأمة، يا عبرة لكل مؤمن ومؤمنات، يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. فيا ليتني كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. In continuing our Majalis on the topic of the Wilayah of Abedi in a postmodern era, we have already discussed that the world is changing around us. It has entered a whole new phase, and the name given by philosophers, thinkers, cultural analysts, and indeed politicians of this new era is called postmodernism. And those of you who were here yesterday or were listening at home or in other places will know, one of the most key assumptions of this whole new world is that there is no such thing as truth. There is no one truth anymore. There are different versions and ideas and opinions of what the truth might be. But there is no one haqq anymore in the world that is carrying on. And we agreed, well, no, we don't accept this. In the religion of Islam, there is haqq, and it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We said this yesterday. And indeed, attached to this haqq are all of the roads which lead back to this haqq. Among whom are, of course, the Wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And we found that the only way for us to counter the narrative that's happening around us, especially for our children, and those of us in workplaces where we are made to change our behavior, or in the media where we are noticing new phrases and propositions and pronouns coming up, is to remember that there is one thing which is true, part of Islam. And this helps us understand the changes around us. Another key assumption, essential feature of postmodernism, is that there is a rejection of any grand narrative of history. This needs some explaining. For postmodernists, there is no such thing where you go back in history and you say that there is something happening which from beginning till end is one narrative, or one meta theory, or one story. There is no story. There is nothing happening in history which leads us to this point. Okay? The point being made is that, look, if there's no such thing as truth, there's no such thing as purpose. I have no purpose. And if there's no purpose, there's no collective purpose, because there's nothing which unites us together in a true, meaningful way. For example, maybe I have my purpose in life, and you have your purpose in life, and someone has their purpose in life. But because there's no truth, none of these purposes is actually worth more than the other. I might decide to dedicate my life to helping people, fine. And someone else might decide to dedicate their life to making money, fine. And the third person can dedicate their whole life in serving their religion, fine. But in a postmodern world, no one person is doing more or worth more than the other person's purpose. Now if you attach this to history, well, what's the point of this civilization, this empire, this species? Why? All of them are just doing what they think is true. But there's no one single central truth happening throughout history. This is one of the reasons why the depression in the world today is so high. Because not only I don't have a purpose for myself or many people, other people, they don't have another purpose for their life. So how can I trust another person? How can I live with another person? How can I accept them when my loneliness is the same loneliness they feel? And that's why many people say we're living a loneliness epidemic right now, where all individuals are lacking purpose and they don't know how to gain purpose because there's no truth. You see the problem that we are in right now, right? Everyone's thinking I'm struggling alone. But because I know there's nothing that can help me or you, all of us are struggling together. And that's why the depression is so high in the world today. There's no collective goals, no aim, no purpose. However, in the religion of Islam, if we look back in history, there is one purpose. There is one aim. There is one narrative, one story from the beginning until the end, and we are all part of it. This is what very different to postmodernism. Now, Allah SWT creates Adam for a purpose. And there's Yawm al-Qiyamah for a purpose. And everything in between Adam until Qiyamah for humanity has some goal, some aim. For that reason, if a person goes back in history, they would find there are certain patterns, certain secrets, certain universal laws and norms which are hidden between the pages of history. And only someone who's willing to find out what does God want for humanity will find it. But in a postmodern world, there's no time or space for these dialogues. They are so tired and so despondent, and anyone trying to say history is one thing. But no, in Islam, history is one fixed narrative. Before I go into the topic, interestingly, the Quran addresses the ideas the postmodernists come with. The very idea they come with that there's no such thing as one history, it's addressed in the Quran where? In Surah 38, verse 27, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاءَ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا بَاطِلًا. We did not create the heavens or the earth and whatever's inside it for no reason. Today they're all saying there's no reason. Quran is saying, if they come to you saying this, we did not create the heaven, the earth, and what is that with no reason, باطلا. ذَلِكَ ظَنُّ. This is just an idea some people have. Look how Quran is answering our problems today. ذَلِكَ ظَنُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَوَيْلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِنَ النَّارِ. This is just an idea, a dhan of those who are doing kufr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And woe be to those people in the hellfire. That they go through life doubting, why is there a heaven, why is there an earth, why is there a purpose? There's no purpose. This is just an idea they have. In Islam, there is a grand narrative. Today, inshallah, the Majlis I'm going to live right now, I want to go through why do the postmodernists think there's no such thing as one narrative in history? And why do we find there is one fixed story? And essential to that story is about Allah. You could say, at the heart of the human story, from the beginning until the end, is Hussein ibn Ali. And everything before him is leading to him. And everything after him comes from him. Hussein is like a turning point in the history of humanity. But we can't get there until we realize what is Islam's grand narrative of history, to know his place. And we can't get to there until we know what is the objection against this point. So if you are with me, and if you lend your ears to me for the time that I have, and if I have all of your attention, inshallah, come together with me, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Do I have permission to begin, inshallah? Throughout the 20th century, there were two competing ideas to explain why the world is how it is and how it will become. One idea was called communism, one was called capitalism. These two ideas were the most popular and widespread theories over the last century to explain why we are how we are, what our history is, and where we're going. The first of them is communism. Communism, or Marxism, which are not the same, but we'll use those together for now, is the theory that all of history is known by the struggle between the worker and the master, between the slave owner and the slave, between what they call the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. These are the terms they use. All of history is simply a cycle of conflict between two groups of people, worker, master. Any society you go to, any community, any economy, all of them are just having the same conflict again and again and again. And each group is trying to defeat the other. The workers want control of the means of production, and the master wants to make sure he remains the master. So for them, and thinkers like Karl Marx and Engels and others came, even in the Muslim world they grew in popularity, to argue all of history is simply a constant cycle. And at each point, either the worker is on top or the master is on top. At some point they say, the worker will win. And so this theory is not just a theory of history, it's a theory of future as well. That one day, according to the communists and the Marxists, what will happen? The workers will gain so much strength and they'll unite so much. Marx once said, oh, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose except your chains. And they'll realize we are in poverty because of the master. And gradually they'll destroy the shackles of the master and they'll become in charge. So you had novels like 1984 by George Orwell, and writers and films and art all proposing communism. And indeed you had an entire Soviet Union built upon these principles. Alongside they have a completely different theory called capitalism. Capitalism argues that the entire history of humanity is a story of the production of wealth and money. That's history. Not worker, master, no. It's all about wealth, the generation of wealth, those who are rich and those who are poor. And it is in the story of how money is created that we have Insani. They will argue, and they did argue during their time, that in history you have a very early system. Actually, let's go back to the first Majlis, for those of you who were here, where people started bartering and trading with one another. Remember I mentioned this in Majlis number 1, I don't know if you guys were here. And in that process, wealth was created through trading and through the earth, where they realized you can actually sell wheat and plants and animals for goods. And in the act of selling, there was something called wealth. Gradually, markets developed, and the world became a system of individual markets scattered around the earth. And each market had a control of some goods and services, and they traded one another. This then led to the idea that, this world is built upon two things, supply and demand. Some people want something, some people have something. And all of human history is those with something giving to those without something for something. And those without something wanting something from those with something. Poor and rich. The rich man contains wealth, the poor man wants wealth. The rich man has food, the poor man wants food. The rich man has power, the poor man wants power. And so what happened then was, the whole world was restructured according to wealth. Who says this? Capitalists. And that's why you had empires. Empires came when powerful countries could expand their borders because their wealth was more. They were richer, and they could build their whole society on things like the slavery of other people. And gradually empires grew and grew and grew until you had world powers, each